Hey guys, I'm Sam with Scrappy Industries. Welcome back to the Talbert Destruction Rebuild Package. Now, if you've been following this project, we started by, hey, we're gonna change the axles, we got a few things to fix up, and we're gonna paint this trailer. And it has very quickly spiraled entirely out of control. And we've pretty much been in a train wreck of fixing all sorts of rot and corrosion and everything else we found in the last 30 years of this trailer's life. Unfortunately, we are pretty deep, and a lot of guys asking me, why are you doing this? Why didn't you find a better trailer? Well, we're in it this far. There's really no quitting. Otherwise, we've spent a ton of money on a pile of scrap metal. So it really comes down to sometimes the only way out is to keep on digging. So let's get back to digging. Rich is getting her all buffed down, prepped up for welding. All the old welds ground off, and now it's about as far apart as we're gonna have to go. Still got to pull these bushings out. I might end up burning some of that rubber out with the torch because that's as far as we got on that one. We're partially sandblasted. Ran out of time yesterday, still gotta flip it and finish everything else. I'm trying to get inside these lights and everything as well as he could, which is pretty good, a lot better than it was. I think we can try a little bit more in there. But yeah, she's looking fresh. Now we got what we could call our first pass blasting done. Some of that scale, it had to come off with the needle scaler and the air chisel. It's just so hard. And I'm not sure exactly what to think yet about some of the pitting. I mean, there's some, pretty major pitting in where that dirt was laying inside of the bolsters, but I think this 1-inch thick flange kind of makes up for it. I've never seen another trailer with that thick of a back end, Talbert or not, so we're kind of counting on a major factor of safety there compared to what you see on most trailers. And it's really only towards the outside that it's that bad. So there's not a lot to do there. I was trying to buff out. I got a little happy with the torch cutting off the suspension. But for right now, I'm just gonna prime the areas that are gonna get covered up by the bolsters, the hangers, and the airbag brackets, as well as all those parts themselves. So let's check out our new zinc primer. So sandblasting, getting into this, has actually been a really good tool for us, and we've uncovered a few different cracks from sandblasting that now we need to address. And I prefer to do this before we put any paint or primer in the way. We can see everything a lot better. We got nice clean metal to weld on. The only time I want to weld into the primer is I want to prime, probably end up just doing this whole thing before we weld on the new bolsters and the suspension hangers and all that, because I want to get as much covered where like the suspension hanger is. You could get the gun down in there, but it's going to be difficult. So I really want to get as much coverage on this as we can, probably better than it ever was. I assume it was all raw steel when Talbert welded it together, then they painted it. So I just really want to try to increase our chances of success, longevity, not rot out as best we can. That's why we're going to prime the hangers and all that while we can get to the inside of them as well. Because once they go on, that taper of that metal makes it really hard to get down in there. So we'll prime them first, we'll prime this first. But before we get to that, I think some of the deeper gouges, we're gonna weld them up, buff them down smooth. There's a crack in here on the cross member, and all the bushings, they actually have cracks on them. Looks like a fair bit of undercut on whoever last did that. I think it might have been a repair along the line. So we're probably gonna gouge a lot of that out and do some welding repair on those as well. Just to show what I'm talking about, I think we got this little crack here. I mean, none of it's a huge deal, but now is sure the time to deal with it. This is where the shims get stored, and it's just rotted to pieces, so I think we're gonna cut that off. We'll make a new one just to make it look nice. So in here, I think this is just kind of some questionable weld more than anything. I don't know, who along the line did it. But over here, I think that might be cracked, and you can see how much undercutting they had. I think in order to get a good weld in there, we'll actually stand this thing up so you can really just lay it to her. This has some scale that's basically impossible to get out while sandblasting. I hit it with the air chisel to get it out. All this needs just a little bit more blasting. I think Chuck was having a hard time seeing out there, old Chuck Foose. You can see we just kind of got the camouflage package. No big deal. It's easy enough to go back and do a little more blasting. But for right now, we're kind of tuned up to where we can come in and just fix up. Yeah, I think that might be a crack on the side of that weld as well. So obviously when you're twisting and turning, the axle in all the suspension beam is really torquing on this hard, just like the hangers. And that's what kind of concerned me about them, that we need to get all that in tip-top shape. Some of this where the bags wear, I don't know, it's probably, you know, not the end of the world, but there's definitely some erosion, corrosion on that. Where the hangers wear, all that jazz. We'll get her fixed up. I was also thinking about trying to heat this guy up, maybe with the rosebud, and do a little more hammer. I just like to make that look a little bit nicer from the top side. All in all, this trailer is taking a ton of work, and I definitely underestimated it when we started into this. I was like, oh, I'm putting the new axles on, and it's like, oh, we find the crappy bolsters, and oh, the suspension hangers are rotted, and if you can afford a brand new trailer, go buy a brand new trailer. I think any used trailer in the salt states like us, you're gonna be into something like this. So you're either paying $60,000, $70,000 for a decent looking used trailer, may still need some work, or you're spending over 100, you know, on a modular. You might be 150 or more on a brand new one. And if you have that money, it's money well spent. Otherwise, you're getting sweat equity in it. Fortunately, Rich has been doing a good job outside, so we kind of have him on staff for this job. And it's a lot cheaper than if we were just subbing it all out entirely to a shop. We have a lot of the tools and everything needed, so it makes it nice to do it, you know, ourselves in-house. But even just for one guy, boy, that's a lot of work. You kind of, there's a lot of man hours going to be in this thing by the end. So I go to start priming these parts here, and we got our zinc primer from PPG. And well, the date on it says November of 2022, and I'm like, that's kind of old. Whatever. Maybe it has a really good shelf life when it's, you know, not with the hardener. So I'd opened it up here, and it is, turns out, not good. And I'd taken our drill motor adapter here with a 1/2-inch drill. Like, you can't even push that down into it. And I mean, I just ordered this last week, March of 2025. So I called PPG this morning, and they say, well, I can probably get you more, but the warehouse, if it had that old can, they're gonna have more old cans they'll send you. I'm like, well, what in the world? Can you order new? So we're pretty much on our own, and both of these are out of date. See, the hardener says 2022 as well. One part had a 1-year shelf life, and one part had a 2-year shelf life when I looked it up. So fortunately, they are taking it back, but that kind of leaves us here at, you know, we don't have a great solution right now. Well, after our whole debacle with the PPG zinc primer, I thought about a job we did back in 2018 where the customer spec'd in Carboline. And I looked back to the specs, and it was 859 zinc primer was part of that job with their polyurethane on top. And I reached out to Carboline to get a price on it, and they said, hey, we'll send you a demo. And this is the demo that I was sent, which is 2 4-gallon kits of the zinc primer, paint, and clear coat. So we're gonna put the polyurethane clear coat over top for a little extra UV protection. This is actually a zinc powder, and then you have the A part of the zinc primer as well as a B part in that epoxy. So you're mixing all 3 of these together. Now you have to use an agitated paint pot for this to actually keep that zinc in solution so it doesn't fall out. The idea with the zinc primer is you're actually giving it cathodic protection, where the zinc is acting like a cathode or an anode on the back of your boat, where the corrosion will happen at the zinc instead of at the steel that you're trying to protect. That's the idea anyhow. We're gonna put safety red on it, and unfortunately we had a little blowout here on the trip, but I think it's a nice looking color anyhow. That's our paint. And then, like I said, we have the clear coat going on over top for a little extra UV protection. So let's see if we can figure this all out and get it mixed properly, and hopefully it works. So this is the new paint pot I bought. It's a Binks 2.8 gallon So it has this air-driven agitator on it. You can see the little propeller. And that's up here. We control the speed of that with this little dial. And then it's pushing air pressure into the paint pot. So it pushes the paint out of this tube like a straw and out to the paint gun. This is just my old Binks Model 7 gun. It does have a .070 tip, a 1.8 millimeter tip. Hopefully that all works out. We're gonna just connect the fluid hose directly to the gun here, as well as the air will come from the second regulator here on the paint pot. And we'll be able to paint, like I said, 2.8 gallons at a time. I'll probably mix up 1 gallon batches. We need to measure out everything. I think it's like 12 pounds of zinc into that 1 pound batch, and then however much of the 2 liquid parts to make up that gallon of primer. This is our fluid hose. I do recommend a 3/8 ID fluid hose for this heavy primer. I'm hoping it all flows okay. Pretty massive fluid hose. And then we have the air line connects down here. Well, this is our fluid connection coming out of the paint pot right here. And then our air line will connect here into the bottom of the paint gun. And then I need to put our shop fitting on this side to give it air. So this kit was designed for you to mix up 4 gallons of primer. And that's basically just this whole 72 pounds of zinc, I think that is. There's a few gallons of part A and 1 gallon of part B, I think is how that all works out. And you just mix them all together. They tell you not to mix less than the carton amount, but we're gonna do that because we need like a gallon mixed up to start with. We don't need 4 gallons. So I just have an empty clean bucket here. We're gonna measure out, I think it's 14 point something pounds of zinc powder we need. I have it on my phone. So I'm gonna use our shipping scale and weigh out the zinc, and then we're ready to mix in part A and part B, and we'll just measure them out with the regular mixing cups. All right, so this is our handy dandy shipping scale. Let's see what this guy weighs. Yeah. 77 pounds. They're telling you 73 pounds net contents. So, I don't know. Would the can actually weigh 4 pounds? I kind of doubt it. It's all going to be close enough for government work. I do put a desking in there. Makes sense, trying to keep this dry. But it is just a bag of dry zinc powder. You see, that's what it looks like. That is very, very fine. 0.6 pounds. Tear that over to 0. And if we're gonna make up 1 gallon of product, we need 14.6 pounds of zinc powder. And that'll be 0.35 gallons of part A and 0.20 gallons of part B. We'll have to mix in with this zinc filler material. All right, we're just gonna red solo cup. 14 pounds over, hopefully. It's crazy to me how you're literally just coating the thing in zinc dust. And you kind of have that binder material holding it on there. This is like a liquid galvanizing at this point, I think is a fair way of putting it. 14.6. That's crazy. That's so much zinc to go into to make 1 gallon. So after we sandblasted these things, this is how the welds and everything turned out in them. I'm happy with it. We pretty much filled out that entire fillet weld. And then on this side, you can see we just fully welded out those brackets there. So my main concern when we prime this is to get everything inside, because once this is covered up, when it's welded onto the beam, you're only going to have that little bit of access from the top and not great angles on everything. So I want to get as much coverage as we can, and kind of the same thing on the bolsters here. We'll get a good shot of primer in all this, and then when the tops go on, yeah, it's going to burn some paint away on the inside, but all this will still be well covered, and we're going to reach in there and hit it as best we can with primer again, and then of course fill it all up with paint as best we can. That regulator allows us to adjust the gun's pressure, and then this is the pot pressure. That's how much is pushing the paint out to the gun. And then I think this is our agitator. Yeah. That's low speed. I think don't really go. And now as soon as you get some load on it, yeah. It's gonna slow down with the paint in there. Trouble has just entered the building. I was looking for a painter. You got a shark? All right, 760 milliliters of that, 1,300 milliliters of part A. Dump that in. It's just crazy to me how much zinc this is. I mean, there's more zinc there than what the current liquid level is. Start with mixing that in. I don't know how much we can count on the agitator in the pot. I guess you could count on it for a lot. The rain's coming too. We're really running out of time on that outside piece.
All right, it's raining. We gotta get her in.
Oh no! Well, the good news is now that we're done, we really didn't waste too much. There's just a little puddle down there. Now we got to get her all cleaned up. Well, that actually worked out really well. Although this green color does kind of look like the blasted steel, it's not super much contrast. The only issue I had was like if a little bit of zinc must have got stuck in the nozzle of the gun, and then it would just spit out paint, and that's what some of the drops are, you see. I think I was putting it on a little bit heavy where all this orange peeling is. I think it should be more like this. I did get some of those things you dip in the paint to check the thickness, but I left them at home, of course. Next time we'll check our thickness a little bit. The rain kind of messed us up on this guy. I got the areas primed where the bolsters are gonna go on. Here and here. I missed where those bags go. I think I'll just rattle can something on there. And these front bag plates go here. That's pretty close to start tacking all this up so we can get everything situated. We're still gonna weld up some of the gouges like over there and clean all that up. So now we got all our different spots primed, and the back of all of our airbag mounts and the inside of the suspension mounts are primed. We need to lay all this stuff out and get it tack welded back onto the trailer. All right. We got our suspension hangers, of course, at the bottom of the pile. So this guy was 2 inches back from that cross member, and then we're 40 inches center to center. They were flush on that side of the trailer, and this side had a little gap. So I'm curious how that all lays out. I'm also questioning, should we leave it like that, or should we just make them centered on the trailer? All right, with the old T-square, how do we look? Looks like the cross member is nice and square in there. Okay, I'm gonna mark the cross member line here. Now we're gonna put a 2-inch gap in that. All right, so that's where we have that filler. 46 1/4 would be the outside. And you can see it is 47. So it's 3/4. That means we'd be moving it 3/8 of an inch over to be centered on the trailer. Which I gotta say I feel better about. But I also think that Talbert isn't dumb, and they would have probably done that for a reason. The only thing I can think is sliding these this way, the way this is flipped upside down, that moves your load essentially into the center of the road, and as the crown of the road off to the right, that would shift that weight over to the left and keep the trailer from rolling right so much. That's my only thought, but like I said, they moved it 3/8 of an inch. It's not like they moved it far. But I really highly doubt that they did that unintentionally. I don't know. Ready? It's so much less wrinkly than before. I like it. We're gonna have to kind of figure out where the airbag mounts go, mostly based on the marks of where they used to be. Getting a little stormy out. So at least up here we can basically measure just from this hanger up and make it the same as from this hanger up, because we know where this one goes for sure, this little helper crossmember piece. I don't know if we know that answer back there. And the storm has led to the power going out, so I guess that ends right now is fun. What do you think Cleveland hooked up here? It's been flashing a few times, it's trying. Come on, girl. Well, quick little lunch break, and we have power. Too much. All right, I think we're pretty well laid out. I got the welder out. We're gonna tack down all these pieces, just a couple places. Then I'm gonna take the wire wheel, clean off the primer we're putting the weld. I know the primer is going to burn off on the backside. I was just trying to get things covered as well as we could where we're not going to be able to get to them so well once this is all attached. You can see like the angle of everything. It's going to be hard to get primer down to that main rail. So I was just trying to prime, you know, the back of this, the bottom of the rail, get everything coated as best we could. We're going to be painting everything else, obviously, once it's totally assembled and we're not doing any more welding. All right, let's not bump anything. Wow, that zinc primer is like impervious to welding.
Well, that worked. What's going on here? I don't know why it's so mad. I think we have an 045 tip in there right now.
Something is not happy, Bob. Let's see what a new contact tip will do for us. Why I'm fighting this welder so much.
What is going on? Oh.
operator error. They were running this as a TIG machine. Electrode negative, I guess. So that was hooked up electrode negative, not electrode positive. That'll probably help.
That's more better. This is a bad idea. I do not like this smoke. It is nasty stuff. I don't think we're much different than Welding galvanized. I've been wire wheeling it all as good as I can.
Well, I'm going to fully admit that putting the zinc coating on prior to welding was a terrible idea. And this smoke is nasty. I don't know if this respirator is really enough or not. I'm kind of concerned about what we have going on here. We're just going to wire wheel it as best we can, and we're going to move on with these. For the bolsters though, I'm going to wire wheel the inside of all this a little bit because, you know, the outside I didn't paint on any of this stuff. So we'll clean off the inside. That way when we do weld this, it's the heat, you know, it's really only a little bit, you know, quarter, half inch that's burning off and coming out of the inside. This stuff does seem to withstand a lot of heat. Like, it's still in there a lot. Like, I'm happy with how the coating is performing, not happy with dealing with it and hopefully not dying, because I think this is really not that much different than welding galvanized at this point, which is not good. Definitely not good for you. So we're going to clean up the coating off of this that we just put on there, as well as the top of the bolsters and where they're going to get welded, and try to make this a little bit more bearable. So I'm going to go ahead and mark where we need to grind the bottom of the top to clean all its zinc coating off, and then we can go ahead and tack this guy up, and then we'll slip them on, see how it looks. There we go. The next problem is all the zinc in here on the side of the trailer. I guess I'll grab just the bottom part and hold it in there. We can Sharpie it off and grind it out of the way too, although it's down in all those pits. Bad ideas. Something in that vector holder. I'll just slip that in there. Well, we're just kind of roughing it in there for the sake of a Sharpie right now, but that's basically what we'll have. Boy, that looks sweet on there though, doesn't it? So much less wrinkly. All right, let's see if we can slip this one in. I'm gonna keep the jack in close, that way when we lift it up, it's pushing the top down, if that makes any sense, from the torque of it. I would rather do this with it right side up, but I don't really want to flip the trailer. I also have to say I'm happy this fits, because this is the first time the bolster's been on the trailer. I had confidence. So we have our line from this edge. We know that's 6 inches, so if we measure over 3 inches, and then we'll just mark center of the bolster, that's how we can align this, and then we'll use a square to line everything up. And we also have to care about our height, which is what we'll use the pipe stand for, and then we'll tack it. We gotta come back this way. Not much. All right, it's on there. Another way I'd consider doing this was if it was flipped over, we could tack a piece of tubing to the top, like square tubing, and use that to square it up with the other side. But either way, you got to slip it in. So I kind of like the pipe stand way. It should be really close, is kind of how I'm looking at it. I did make this bolster a touch wider than the old one to get us around the crappy areas on the main frame. All right, hang our straight edge level out over it. My fingertip says it's a hair that way. I think if I put a spacer block, like a 1, 2, 3 block here and here, and then we put the level out over it, we can measure that, because this weld right here is messing us up. All right, my other thought is we're on this handy dandy tilting forklift. If I just put the level here and we level out the trailer and we set the level on the bolster, we're golden. Need to lean forward a little. Happy with that. That needs to come up a little bit. Really, we ought to level it off the top. Now my only concern here is if the whole trailer moves some. I just want to pull just a slight gap there, I guess. Still good over here. Okay. See, that's where we want her to be. Think we're golden? Well, I'm struggling so much welding through our zinc primer that I think, as dumb as it sounds, I'm gonna go back out and sandblast the weld pass all off again because, well, it's a disaster to weld through and that was a bad idea. So at least we only did these few parts and we didn't do like a lot of parts before we learned this lesson. We're gonna go blast it. So we went around and blasted all these areas where we're gonna weld. The problem is there's still gonna be that zinc coating on the inside that's gonna be smoking. So it's gonna be an outdoor stick welding operation now. And then if there's anything in the way, I think the stick welder is going to blow right through it without caring, unlike the MIG. Got this one bolster kind of started. I think that's all we're gonna do for right now. And this is like, I was having problems where I'd grind it back out and hit it again. But we're gonna end up standing that up on its side and welding real hot in here. So we're just gonna wait on that for right now, and we gotta get the other 3 bolsters tacked up. But for right now, Rich is gonna weld in all the suspension hangers. We're just gonna put 3 passes of 60-10 on it because that's what we had. So I think 3 passes is gonna be plenty sufficient for that A36. I think the only thing we need to be careful about, Rich, is this 514, you don't want to get it too hot.
Okay.
So you probably want to do like 1 pass and then 1 pass over there and just keep yourself spread out.
Okay.
So I think that's our best method. See, the mighty old Lincoln's been putting in work on this job. Well, Odie, think we can get those other 3 bolsters on tonight? We're gonna get this thing picked up on some stands. Rich was working on these, of course, earlier. Got our airbag mounts all tied down. He's working on making 3 passes around each of these. Some of them I think he did, others not. Our main goal is to keep that 514 from getting too hot, so we're kind of like spreading the love as far as that goes. So I reached out to Talbert and said, hey, do you have any weld procedures or anything like that? Because I'd read you need to preheat 514, but you also need to keep the temperature below like 400 degrees Fahrenheit inner pass, then wrap it in a blanket and let it cool slow, things like that. And Talbert's like, hey, we don't preheat it unless it's like 2-inch thick steel and it's cold and wet. So they're basically telling me just have at it. So, hey, if that's what they have luck with, that's what we're going to do. But to that point, I'm super impressed with the customer service I've got from Talbert. I have bought, unfortunately, literally nothing from them on this project. So when I had those questions about weld procedure, Troy calls me up with the weld shop supervisor there to kind of help me out and kind of alleviate any worries. They did say I should tip it up on its side when we weld the bolsters on just to get good hot 3 passes down in there on the beam, which makes sense. So we'll end up holding it up probably with the Terex, hold it up on its side, weld one side's 2 bolsters, and then flip it up the other way, weld it, and then basically we can be in position welding all 4 sides of the bolsters, make them as strong as we possibly can. We'll get her picked up and set down on these pipe stands, and then we can use another pipe stand to hold the bolster level. My reason for using the pipe stands now is we can use them to very precisely level the rear section, and then we can just use a level on each bolster to get it squared up. I think we want to get it just as level as we can with the forklift to make life easy. Needs to lean back just a little bit. Too much. Close. I gotta say, I trust the forklift more than these stands, so it's gonna stay right there as backup protection. Although it does seem nice and solid now. Need to bring this side down a little bit. My friend Brad would always say when we were rigging machines, level down, don't level up. You can always feel it in the jacks when you're picking something up versus letting it down. That's pretty well perfect there. We still looking okay? Oh yeah, we're still looking right on the money on that guy. So our level method, I think, is pretty good. I honestly think our thought of keeping it tilted this way is good. That one was pretty snug though. Remember, I kind of like ram jammed it on there. So we'll go with that. Alrighty, still got to tack the top to the bottom on this guy, and then we'll slip her up here in place. Not again, come on! What is up with this power? Oh, this is just the lights. We just hit the timer. It's 9. Shop wants us to shut down. And we're back. All right, are you good and centered by my little eyeball? Looks good to me. About a half. About a half. Right, big O? Right, big O? Hi, buddy. Hi, buddy boy. Having sandblasted this is way nice. I'm thinking before we put it on the trailer, we might want to weld these up solid. Just run out of wire. And that's the end of the spool. Maybe we'll go ahead and switch over to the dual shield and see how that goes. So I got the 045 flux core drive rolls because we've never run that before. And that changes out this tip here in the feeder. And then the liner that's in here is an 035, 045 liner. We just need to change the contact tip. This is what we're going to run. Hobart Fabco 110. So the biggest reason I picked this wire, and I could be wrong, I don't know, but what I found on the spec sheets is it can run on C25. A lot of the other ones wanted 100% carbon dioxide, I think, and we don't have that here in the shop, and I didn't really want to add another gas, so went with this wire. It should be high strength for welding the 514 mainly. For this, I don't think it's going to add much other than I've never run dual shield, and I'm kind of curious how it goes. And we'll see how this goes. So looking at the settings chart here, C25 flux cord gas shield at 045. And we'll set it up for 1/4 or 3/8, somewhere in there. So 22.9, 263. This auto set machine's pretty neat. Like you can set, so you're gonna set it to gas shielded flux core, and it tells you, okay, we're running C25, that's all good. And then 045. I've been running the 5/16 settings on the hardwire, been working pretty well. But that puts you basically at where the chart wants you to. Like there's the 1/4 inch settings that we were looking at up there. So if you bump that to 5/16, it puts you on the chart, and then you can basically fine tune it from there is what they want you to do with auto set. But auto set is more or less just an electronic version of that chart, which is good for dum-dums like me who don't weld every day. And well, let's have our first go at dual shield. That seemed to work really nice. See how the flux cleans off. I tell you what, dual shield makes you look like you know what you're doing. Dual shield actually, turns out, makes me the welder I ain't. Alrighty kids, lift with the legs. A rut row. There it is. There it is. Our level's still nice and true. Buster, did you come to tack her up? Awful brave going under there. We got the double forklift and Chinese pipe stand collection here. After the amount of work we've put into these bolsters, I'm just terrified of welding them on there crooked. So I'm going to take this piece of tubing, which should be a pretty decent long straight edge, and lay it underneath there and see what it looks like. I mean, really, I guess we could do that on the top here. Your fingertip doesn't lie. Yeah, I think it needs to come up a little more. That looks good. And the level looks good, that looks good. Kind of want to just trust that and go with it. $37 right on the money. What? Right at 37 inches again. Woo! That way, because I was actually so cantilevers up into the trailer. Oh, okay. I got it like here on this. All right, now we're trying to set this down and stand it up so we can weld the bolsters in position. I was trying to get that out. I had that caught. I'd say once we get it up, if you just kind of come in and probably pick it off of me. I don't know if that's... We're going to end up hitting that, aren't we? If you can just put your forks kind of in right here and just hold it and back right up and we'll weld it from there. Spread them out, Jake. Yeah, go ahead up. Can he pick it up? Maybe it will. Oh yeah, you got her in the bag. Nothing to her, bud. You got it. Just back up so you can keep welding. All right, we got her stood up. Let's go welding. All right, so we have this thing stood up so we can keep our passes in position and we're not fighting gravity or anything like that. Ultimately, just trying to get better penetration. We put 3 passes in these. Those bolsters are done on that side. Now we're gonna lay it down flat and we're gonna weld all the tops into that main flange hot and heavy. Before we do that, I think this is the best time, just for looks, I wanna cut this rail out of here. I'm thinking we'll just cut it off and weld in a little piece of 6-inch channel just to fix the look of that. We're going this far. It's gonna annoy the crap out of me if we have that all beat up in there in our final product.
A little more on this side.
I think cutting her at 19 should do it. How square did we cut? Hey, it's in there. Let's see if we can raise it down. So I wanted to weld some extra D-rings on the back of this trailer. So I reached out to Mighty Products. They have some nice heavy duty 1-inch D-rings. I ordered them up. Let's check them out. Now, our shipper receiver did open the box. However, it came in not very good condition. But I think all 26 made it. I think 26 might have been a bit much for one box. But this is what we have here. I guess they come in 2 packs. It says braking strength 47,000 pounds. I think the working load limit on any 1-inch D-ring is 15,000 pounds. So they come with the D-ring itself and the little tab. You can just weld that over top wherever you want it. And yeah, they look pretty nice. Look like D-rings. I think we might put the one here, a third one here, another one on that side, so that we have options. My other thought was honestly to put it sideways. I don't know. Just kind of depends on what you're chaining down, which way you're going to end up pulling, I guess. But normally the shovels, you have a fair bit up in the air. That'll be all right. You just don't want to super side load these things. So to install these, we're running our Fabco 110 flux core wire. We're going to keep rolling with that. We're on 3/8 settings, which are 25.5 volts, 400 inches a minute. So this is flux core, but we are running gas as well, C25, so it's a dual shield. And now we've installed the shovel hauling package on the back of the 50-ton thanks to these fancy new Mighty Products D-rings. All right, got these 3 D-rings on there. That's going to help a lot for hauling shovels. Seems like you end up putting a crib block across the back here, setting the bucket down, one right in the middle to go through the teeth and up to the point shivs is always really nice. So now we have that. Another reason I wanted these was sometimes when you just have an excavator, you need to pick up the back of the trailer and move it around like on a job site, like what we did with the D8, for example. That's very common. Now we have an easy place. We can hook that right up, pick it up with a 1/2-inch chain and spin her around. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. In the next one, we're going to pick up on painting this. We got a sandblast, zinc primer, all this, and then we're going to hit it with the old safety red. And I don't know if we're going to clear coat yet, or if we're going to hold off on that, but going to get it ready for reassembly. From that point on, I mean, it's basically just, you know, bolting all together. It's simple. The axles, we still got to weld the adapters on to our new axles, and we need to blast and paint the suspension beams as well. So that'll all kind of be within blasting this. I'm Sam with Scrappy Industries. Thanks for watching.